Good morning. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Ara. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you for putting this together because, leaving California, the untold story, what's interesting is that they're leaving California and they're coming to North Carolina. You should see our California numbers going up, 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 up.
Yeah, this is have a big impact, and I'm sure it's probably causing you guys to pay more for housing. Because when we sell homes here and we go over there, that we have a lot of cash to buy homes there.
That is so true because my daughter lived in Los Angeles. She graduated from UCLA, and when they realized that they could get more home here, they sold in California and made their way back to the Carolinas.
Yeah, that's happening, and a lot of young people when they get their first or second job, they kind of realize that wow, it's very hard to own a home here in California. You have to have a lot of savings, and it's gotten so expensive that it's almost impossible for a young couple or young person to actually be able to buy a house. And then the retirees, if you have a big pension, or you kind of want to, you already paid for your home and now your home is worth $2 million or $1 million, you just sell it and you relocate. And then when you go to North Carolina, you actually will pay more, you're willing to pay more and then drive the cost of housing higher there.
So what is it like for you to prepare for these conversations that you had with real people in California? Because I would have to have a heart made out of steel and basically do some meditation before going into it because people's lives are changing and it's happening way too fast.
It was great to get out there and meet the people that are impacted by these policies. I host a show called California Insider. We interview different insiders in the state. I interviewed over 300 people, and they were telling me about a lot of these problems and a lot of laws. But when you go out there and you meet somebody that has to move, and the thing is, all of these people love California, and they don't want to go, but they have to go, and they love the nature. They love the way the state is. They either grew up here or even they moved here. They love the state like I do. So when you sit down with them and you kind of see what they went through, and then you think about it and you say, okay, it's not just these people that I see. There's a lot more people out there like them. So, for example, when we went and talked to one of the individuals in the documentary that's facing challenges with cost of living, her name is Marilyn. She told us she does 3 jobs and she couldn't make it. And it looked like she was working 24/7, and and she was living paycheck to paycheck. And then you think about it, 25% of the state is living like that, paycheck to paycheck. And then you kind of start thinking, wow, these stories they're real people impacted, and in the process we kind of realized there's a huge disconnect between the people and their problems and the leaders of the state and the policymakers. And she also told us that she'd called these leaders many times, but she couldn't get any feedback, any response to her problems. So there's this disconnect. And when you meet the real people, actually, you kind of get removed from the politics side of things. Sometimes we talk about politics and we think about politics and it makes us more divided. But when you actually go and talk to the individual and figure out their challenges, you kind of get away from this whole political things and things become more real.
Some people actually believe that it can't go on forever. So that tells me that there's a Superman on the edge somewhere, that somebody's going to come and save the day. Is that feasibly possible?
I think it is. I think one of the reasons we made this documentary is because if I think about it, I made this for myself.
Oh.
10 years ago, even though I was a very, very informed individual, I'm an entrepreneur, I built businesses here, I had no idea what's going on in the state. And when I came here 20 years ago, it was like paradise. And then the last 5 to 10 years, things have changed a lot. And I think there are a lot of people out there that have no idea what's going on. They're seeing some of these problems. They see a little bit of crime. They see a little bit of homelessness. They see a little bit of cost of living, but they're not really connecting all the dots. And this documentary will help them see all of it. And when they do connect all the dots, they're going to start making changes. Yeah. And this is a very innovative state. We have a lot of entrepreneurs here. We have a lot of smart people that work very hard, but they're just not present in the government. So it would be interesting to see when that shift comes. And we're also very compassionate as Californians. You know, we always want to help others. And a lot of times we are told, that the government is working on these problems and they want to help with the homelessness. They want to help with the cost of living. They're saying these things and it sounds great. So we believe it. Now, I think when the average Californian realizes that there's something wrong with the state, then that change will happen. I think in some areas it already started. Yeah. And in some areas like San Francisco, there is a movement of a lot of the middle of the road liberals, Democrats are getting really frustrated with what's going on in the city and they want to make a change. In some other areas, they're still not there.
Well, you say in the documentary, dark times open the door for others to find a release. I mean, you've got to go through the tough times in order to rediscover, to reimagine, and to do things in a newer way.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, if you look at the amount of disservice the media has done for average Californians, it's just unbelievable. You know, we are, and I don't want to blame the media in a negative way, but the thing is, we're still, some of the papers in LA and San Francisco are telling people crime is down. Mm-hmm. But maybe the statistics might be down, but you know, when they're locking up a $20 item in a grocery store, and that wasn't like that 5 years ago, like, is theft down? But the media keeps saying everything is okay, everything is fine. And if you're an average person in LA or San Francisco and you've been reading the papers and you trust the papers and grew up with reading this paper, then you're going to say, well, I trust them, everything is okay, until you see it yourself, until there's a homeless encampment in front of your house. Yeah. And you're told there's a poverty issue, like people are homeless because of poverty, and then you see these young kids doing drugs in this tent in front of your house, and you're like, well, this is not true, I was told something else. So that awakening hopefully will come, but the documentary is made for this reason of informing average Californians what's going on. And the state leaders too, because the state leaders, I think they're very disconnected, and hopefully they can watch this documentary and make changes.
You know, you bring up a very interesting point about how the media is playing out in this game, because I mean, in all honesty, it seems like that it's a battle with other states, between California versus Florida, because Governor Newsom is trying his best. He's trying to clean the air. He's trying to keep people working, but yet we keep seeing this propaganda come up that where California is wrong. They're wrong. Look at what's happening to California. They're moving out of Silicon Valley, and it's like, my God, what is happening in that place? And that's why I'm so thankful that you're doing Leaving California, the Untold Story, because we get to see, you are taking us there.
Yeah, the thing is, like, and the media has allowed this, like, because the media hasn't really hold the politicians accountable. I think they agree with them, and then they just let them say whatever they want, and they won't rebuttal it. So, for example, I'll give you an example. They were going to give homeless people in LA a home. They were building houses for homeless people. And there was a measure, it was called HHH. And it was supposed to raise $1.2 billion and build 10,000 units to house 20,000 homeless. And it was supposed to do it over 10 years. And each unit, it was a studio unit, each unit was going to cost $120,000. Wow. They 6 years later, this measure passed in 2016. 6 years later, they have built 1,000 units, 1,100 units, and each one of them cost $600,000. It's like 5 times the cost, and it's a big failure. If I tell you the story, you kind of think this is a huge failure, right? Mm-hmm. One of the politicians in LA goes in front of a camera in a press release and says, in a press event, it says, Measure HHH has been a big success. All the papers print this. They don't say what was it supposed to do, what is it doing now, and they just don't say anything. So the politician can go and say whatever he wants, and if you're reading the paper, you're like, oh, great, Measure HHH has been very successful. I voted for this. But behind the scenes, you don't know that nothing went as planned.
Well, here's an activator that you introduced to the world, Zach Southpaw. My God, what a hero.
He's amazing. He's amazing. And I've had him a couple of times on the show. And he's one of those guys that they see a problem, he sees a problem, he goes out, he tries to do whatever he can. And when we were with him, at some point in the process of making this documentary, I was very scared of my team quitting. I was like, I have all these young people in the team, and they're hearing about all these problems. And what if they quit and move out of state? And some of them wanted to buy a home here. So then when Zach came, we really saw a lot of hope. Here is one individual that does whatever it takes. And we actually went and saw him, how he does his work. It takes so much effort to build relationships with these individuals and to get to their heart, to find out what went wrong in their life, to help them get out of it. And I believe there's so many more of these people out there, and he doesn't get any help from the government. He's just doing it himself with a small nonprofit. And it was very inspiring to see him in action.
Part of the beauty of California has always been the music scene. The acting, of course, we've all seen that growing up. But the music scene always wrote those California songs, from the Beach Boys to the Mamas and the Papas. So I have to ask, California Dreamin', is it still alive? I mean, because you're on the streets. I just get to listen to a podcast, and I get to listen to the news stories or the sound bites from the news stories.
I think it's not what it used to be. And it's gradually fading away. And I mean, you can still go to the beach, and you can still have the weather is the same, and you can avoid the homelessness in some areas. You can still, but the crime is there. So it's like there's this contrast of, from one angle you can look and see everything is fine, but then there's a ton of problems. If you don't notice the problems, you might still feel like it's there. But even if you think it's there, when it comes time to buy a home, it's very hard to do those things now for average people. So I think it's fading, but it's not in a way where you come in and the place is falling apart. There's still a lot of good things here, so it's hard for people to see. That this dream is fading. And especially when we talk to Marilyn, she does 3 jobs. She makes $60,000 in one of them, and then she does other jobs, and she cannot she can't live here. That tells you that this dream is kind of gone for a lot of people. Now, if some people are very wealthy, and they live in gated communities, and they still might think this is a very nice place and it's great, and they're fine. But for average people, it's hard.
Did anybody try to stop you from making this documentary?
Well, the process of making this is a great question. Nobody wanted to stop us, but in the process, I felt as the experts started asking and discussing what the laws are and the challenges are. It became very, very sad. And we were in the point where it's like, oh my God, this state is in so much trouble and nobody knows. And things are going to get a lot worse. And nobody, and average people have no idea. That was very hard for us. That part of it was very hard for me. And that's why it's very important for us to get it out there, to have a lot of people see it, because I hope that this documentary can be the wake-up call for us Californians and the rest of the nation to fix these problems. But the hardest point in making the documentary was moments where I was like, oh my God, we're in so much trouble.
Yep.
And nobody knows.
Wow. You've got to come back to this show anytime in the future. We've got to keep this conversation going, and it's got to be something that's got to be top of mind and not something that's hidden on page 6.
Thank you so much, Ara. It was great to talk to you. And people can go to livingcalifornia.com to watch it. And they can watch it with a subscription to Epoch TV. And they really need to share it with anybody they can, especially the people in California.
I love it. I love it. Be brilliant today, okay, sir?
Thank you.